Chris Bedford joins us, senior politics editor and D.C. correspondent for TheBlaze. Chris, good to have you back with us, sir.
Great to be here, Vince.
It's it's a night that is supposed to, a tip of the hat to the Catholics. That happens every presidential campaign. President Trump was right. Last person to skip it was Walter Mondale, and as the president pointed out, that didn't go well for him.
Yeah, he took that joke from the Cardinal too, stole it right from him. But I loved those lines. I mean, I was reaching out to folks today to try and figure out who wrote it. Apparently, it was a team effort in the Trump campaign to put together some of those lines. He had some fantastic zingers on the white men for Kamala Harris campaign and on white women for Kamala Harris campaign and all these different groups that were out there. But, Jim Gaffigan had some of the best lines. And he's a Catholic. He's a observant Catholic, but he's a committed Democrat, if that's possible in this day and age. And he had a lot of zingers for Kamala Harris right after. If you caught her video that she sent in, which was bad, Trump was up there for about 28 minutes or so. She sent in a 4-minute video. Most of the jokes came from a tired SNL character, just kind of repeating them. And then she gave a somber message. It wasn't very good. It seemed like a dial-in. It seemed like something that you would send just if you didn't really care that much. Yeah. And it was a real oversight by Kamala Harris. I know that maybe that there's some worry that showing up at a Catholic dinner would upset the LGBT community. Kamala Harris has been notoriously hostile towards Catholics, questioning whether Catholics were capable of serving in the judiciary. For all she likes to cite the Constitution, she sure skips it. But at the end of that video, Jim Gaffigan comes up and says, well, now I know how my kids felt when I FaceTimed into their piano recital. It's not a good feeling. It's not the real thing. And it was such an easy layup for her just to show up. She made time for all these other shows, and she didn't show up.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. I see people on Twitter speculating that her campaign really regrets it this morning and that it was a really bad idea. I don't know if that's even true or not, but it does seem like an unforced error. Like she could, despite all of her obvious hostility to Catholics, that's the kind of thing that you can go just attend to try and mitigate the damage.
And it's not a very political event. It's not a big social conservative event. It's not showing up at the Catholics for Life event. Well, Cardinal O'Malley himself is actually pretty legitimate and good. This is a dinner for New York City's elite. Well, I know a lot of Catholics who went to it. It doesn't have a particularly Catholic agenda. And honestly, the Catholic political vote as a bloc was something that the bishops squandered in the 1960s and have never regained. The moral authority in politics is something that they've surrendered to the secularists and the atheists and every other group, but they are too afraid to actually say, maybe the gospel says we should live this way and hold our politicians to account for it. Yeah. So it's not a huge Catholic vote. But you can still disrespect those people. You can still let us know that you don't care, or that it would be politically harmful maybe for her to show up at a dinner with the Cardinal, but it wouldn't be politically harmful to her to show up at a sex podcast or to show up on this or Howard Stern, who I know you're a longtime fan, but he's got a shock jock past himself. He's said some controversial things. I don't know why Catholics would be too controversial, except for the antipathy that so many people around her hold us in. Yeah,
and I just, for what it's worth, I've liked Howard Stern's interviews in the past. I thought they were revelatory, some of the conversations he's had. But what the idea that he came up as some sort of man against the machine, now he is such a loyal servant to that machine. It's grotesque, and
it's gross.
Yeah, it's really awful. You mentioned a joke. I want to play it. This is President Trump talking about white dudes for Harris. And Chris, you and I have been friends for a very long time. I wasn't in the room with you, but I know exactly what your laugh sounded like when President Trump said this.
There's a group called White Dudes for Harris. Have you seen this? White Dudes for Harris. Anybody know? Are some of you here? White Dudes for Harris. Doesn't sound like it. But I'm not worried about them at all because their wives and their wives' lovers are all voting for me. Every one of those people is voting for me.
That was good. I really like that. There was, I don't know if I've got it, but He also took some shots at Tim Walz, and it was just really, it was good. And the reality, of course, is that Trump had the floor. By just showing up, Trump gets the cameras, he gets the microphone, he gets the floor, he gets to take free shots on his opponent. And Kamala decided to forego all of that because, honestly, she's terrible at this, Chris.
Yes, because it's not like it's a hostile environment. It's not like it's people who are against Kamala Harris. It's not like it's so far from Washington, D.C. or Pennsylvania, where she has to be campaigning. And that's a state where Catholic voters and church-attending Catholic voters actually do make a difference and really do matter. She could hop over there for a few hours. She doesn't have to deal with New York traffic. She's the vice president, and she's the Democratic nominee. They can cruise right in there.
Yeah.
I'm sure Donald Trump did as well. It's not the same kind of commitment. It's totally optics, and it's a total miscalculation. And I saw the same reports that you heard, that we all saw and were able to confirm on Twitter about how angry she's been about this decision today. But I just got off the phone with a union official who was on a phone call where she was on earlier this morning, who told me that he confirmed not all the details we saw on Twitter, but that mood was vile.
In other words, that within the campaign, they were upset that they didn't participate?
There was just a very grumpy, angry, and kind of a desperate mood this morning. The dinner itself wasn't specifically mentioned that I've been able to confirm so far.
Got it.
But an anger at campaign staff and the decisions that have been being made of late. And you see it across the Democratic media and Democrat allies who are today wondering, come on, why didn't you just show up? Why do we have to talk about this? We want to be talking about how Donald Trump is bad for America. Instead, we're talking about how you skipped this.
That's exactly right. I'm really looking forward to her losing and all of the people that, once again, are in the wake of her destruction coming out and telling us the story of the collapse of that campaign. I also want to get your reaction to the fact that Chuck Schumer was sitting right next to President Trump as he was doing his comedy routine last night. And President Trump even mentioned Chuck Schumer at one point. Here's how that sounded.
Chuck Schumer is here looking very glum. Doesn't he look glum? He looks glum. But look on the bright side, Chuck, considering how woke your party has become. If Kamala loses, you still have a chance to become the first woman president.
Another good line. Now, I will say, one of the things I noticed last night, Chris Bedford, is that Chuck Schumer was, like, nice to Trump. Like, they were shaking hands. They were talking to one another. He was treating him like a human being. And it struck me that, once again, it was sort of like this, like the curtain was raised, and it was crystal clear that Chuck Schumer doesn't even believe what he says about Trump, and that none of these Democrats do. That they just try and divide the country by casting Trump as some sort of demon. But when they're right up there next to him, they're happy to shake his hand and treat him like a human being.
You know, you're right. And that is a little bit of politics. But the Democrats have taken it to a new level in the last few years of calling Trump a Hitler. You hear now, like, repeat it just without questioning on ABC and other places that the military is going to be sicked on Democrats and people are going to be rounded up, just completely insane stuff. Now, if you actually believe that, as opposed to simply had serious policy disagreements with someone, you wouldn't shake their hand. You wouldn't be their pal. And you saw Trump ribbing Schumer and giving him a pat on the back at the end. But it was kind of obvious from those interactions that they actually are both, or were, prominent New Yorkers who go back years. They've given Trump, I think, in the past has supported Schumer in different things in his earlier political career. That these people know each other, that they're human beings. That's kind of another point of the dinner. Is it's a roast, but it's also bringing people from different divides together. And Trump is right. If you look at that video, Schumer his head is down. He's looking at the table. He's crossing his hands in front of his face.
Right.
He's not leaning back. And most people who are on the stage don't laugh too uproariously. They just try to smile and be polite. But he did look glum.
Yeah, it was the whole scene was bizarre, though. It's like, you know, Jim Gaffigan called it out last night. It's just like all of these people are a part of. Or here's actually Jim in his own words.
Looking at this impressive dais of attendees up here, I never know how to address you people. Do you prefer, global elite or coastal elite? You know, I mean, I know we live in sensitive times, and I don't want to mislabel anyone.
Yeah, and they all looked ridiculous. I mean, Mike Bloomberg was sitting in front of the speaker's position, just staring blankly at the camera for over an hour. It was really bizarre.
It's awkward when you've got the camera on you the whole time. You're trying to eat your dinner. I'm sure it can be a little weird, but maybe take some cues from the veterans who just sit there and smile. Or a really good tactic was the Cardinal, who you kind of would try to hide his laughter. He would look at the speaker and put his hand up where his face is. You couldn't tell if he was smiling or frowning or laughing, but he was certainly paying rapt attention.
Yeah, well, it was a funny event. I encourage people, if you haven't seen it, at least Jim Gaffigan's stand-up bit and President Trump's stand-up, but it turned out great, I thought. And in the end, truthfully, I'm glad Kamala wasn't there. I didn't need to see her do stand-up. That video was awful enough. I didn't need to see a full-blown set from her. Hey, Chris Bedford, thank you, sir, from TheBlaze, for your time and for your reporting on just how glum the Kamala campaign is this morning.